Where's the sport court?
Welcome to Sport Court with Angelo Ace Camacho at 1252 Sports Chicago.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Sport Court. I know what you're thinking. Wednesday night. Got Mike Chicago Sports Show. Nah, we decided that Mike needed a vacation day. You get to deal with me tonight. I'm joined by my guys, Alan Bratcher and Andrew Tarbill. Tarbill is if you follow 1252, you know him from Turtle's Take. He's the better half of that show, Chris and Vince. And then Alan, you've seen him on here with me almost every time I've had a Sport Court episode. How we doing today, fellas?
Great. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, pretty good. Can't complain. Excited to talk sports. Not that the topics are really exciting.
I'm very mad about the topics almost all of them.
Almost all of them. There's only one bright spot right now in Chicago. Well, two. One hasn't started yet. The other one is going, the White Sox. But before we get into it, we have a little bit of Scottie Pippen to talk about. But the whole Scottie conversation is going to be brought to you by Nick and Ivy. We're going to run the promo real quick, get that one out of the way, and then we'll get into that.
Hello, this is Paul from Nick and Ivy Brewing Company. We are located at 1026 South State Street in historic downtown Lockport, Illinois. We are very excited to be partnering up with the Fat Mike Chicago Sports Show as well as the 1252 brand because we are one of the few Chicagoland breweries that embrace sports and sports culture. Come in for a fresh brewed beer made right here in Lockport while catching the game of your favorite team. Stay for the live music that we have booked every weekend. Or just come for a cozy atmosphere to enjoy a good conversation with a friend, loved one, or complete stranger. Nick and Ivy makes you feel right at home no matter what the occasion is. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook by searching for Nick and Ivy Brewing Company. Visit our website for our up-to-date tap list or to go shopping on our online store at nickivybrewing.com. That's Nikivy brewing.com. Come in today for fresh brewed beer born and raised in Lockport, Illinois.
All right, guys, again, that was a quick word from our sponsor, Nick and Ivy, out in beautiful downtown Lockport, Illinois. They have the Fat Mike beer out now on tap, so be sure to stop out and get you some of that. Great atmosphere, great beers, great people. So,
yeah, it's a nice place for sure. All right, so the topic of basketball in Chicago, you think it'd be, what are the Bulls going to do, in the future? What's Karnisovas going to do, and who can they get in free agency? But no. We have to take a time machine back to the 90s and deal with Scottie Pippen, who, I've seen some salty cats in my time, fellas, but this guy, I understand trying to sell a brand, sell a whiskey and a book, but he's a little over the top. Let's play the clip so that everybody kind of knows what we're about to talk about.
But have you talked to Phil about this? Because by saying a racial move, then you're calling Phil a racist.
I don't got a problem with that.
Do you think Phil was or is?
Oh, yeah. Do you remember Phil Jackson left the Lakers, wrote a book on Kobe Bryant, and then came back and coached him? Who would do that? You name someone in professional sports that would do that. I think he tried to expose Kobe in a way that he shouldn't have. You're the head coach. And you're the guy that sits in the locker room and tells the players, this is a circle, and everything stays within the circle because that's what team is about.
But I go back, and Phil designed a play for Steve Kerr when Mike was there. And Mike didn't have a problem with that, did he?
I don't understand. You're not setting me up to answer the right question. What do you mean Phil set up a play for Steve Kerr? He didn't set that play for Steve Kerr. He set that play for Michael Jordan.
I thought in the huddle, Mike says, I'm going to throw you the ball. You'll be open at the foul line. And Phil had nothing to do with that?
And you don't want to get this show started. because it'll take us a long time. Do you know all those cameras that's sitting in that huddle who they was working for?
The NBA.
So you know who Michael was speaking to when he said that, right? that was planned. That was speaking to the camera. That wasn't speaking out of what we're going to have to do, what the play is going to be. That was speaking to the camera. Had John Stockton not came down, trust me. But that was building his own documentary because he knew he was controlling the cameras. You understand English?
Yeah.
Hey, do you guys understand English?
Do you understand English?
Yeah.
Let me say this real quick. Shaq came out, and Shaq is, we've talked about this before, one of my all-time favorite NBA players. I used to play basketball, modeled my game after his, not my free throw shooting, but the rest of it. And Shaq came out and basically defended Phil Jackson because Scottie is, to me, I don't know what's going on with this guy. I know he's had some major life issues come up, and now he's trying to sell a book and some bourbon, and he just seems like such a salty person, man.
He is. I mean, for me, Angelo, I think it stems a lot deeper than that. Like, you got to think about what this guy's been going through. Like, he lost his son not too long ago. He's going through a painful divorce. I think there's more to it. I mean, yeah, I think at the end of the day, though, it all stems back to that bad contract he signed.
Right.
Right.
He was told not to sign it, though.
He was told numerous times, but he had family to take care of.
I get it.
He had 8,000 relatives that he had to take care of.
Right.
He was the only one
Right.
doing anything, And it's sad to see. Like, as somebody who grew up watching those teams, it breaks my heart to just watch and see how far down he's coming. But in saying that, though, is there part of this that may be true, that it's just kind of swept under the rug? I mean, like right before we got on, I talked with Angela a little bit about, remember whenever Phil came out and had the whole posse statement, and then LeBron went after him for that. Like, there's been little things that have been said that make me kind of wonder, is he completely wrong? Or is it one of those things like, back in the day, whenever somebody would run out and say that they'd seen an alien or they've seen a UFO, they would call him crazy, right? You don't get that anymore, because we've kind of all figured out that UFOs are probably a real thing that we're going to be knowing about sooner than later, right?
Right.
So maybe this is one of those times where Scottie might be a little more right than we know. We don't know, and I don't think we ever will, because those guys aren't going to do that.
So real quick, I wanted to let Tarbill talk real quick, but don't you guys think that if Phil was as racist as Scottie is portraying him to be, other players would have come out by now and said something, right?
Oh,
You would
absolutely.
think.
I don't know, because they might get put in that same category.
I don't
That's
know, man.
what I'm saying.
In today's day and age, and whether it's right or wrong, anytime race gets brought up, it gets magnified, right? And that's why I feel like if it was really race based, to have that play drawn up and Scottie not take the shot or whatever, and I feel like we would have heard a lot about it sooner. You know what I mean? Shaq came out, defended Phil, said there's no way Phil's racist. Who else knows Phil better than guys like Michael, Shaq, Kobe, right?
Scottie.
Right.
Well, and Scottie, but Scottie, if you watch that documentary, man, Scottie's relationship with the Bulls just always seemed on edge
Because
the
of
whole
that
time.
contract. It's
Right.
Because of that.
Yep.
It all stems back to that contract, in my opinion.
So, Tarbo, what are your thoughts?
And I do have to agree with Alan in that regard. I do think a lot of that resentment stems from the contract. Again, he was told not to sign it multiple times, and he was also told don't come back asking for more money if you do sign this
Yeah,
contract.
that's true.
So then when he was number 2 in the league to Michael in all of these stat categories, he was getting paid, as the 135th highest paid player in the NBA or something along those lines. So obviously there's some resentment there. I think as far as Phil goes, I have heard some comments, the posse comment came out years back and everything like that, but I think it's more a publicity stunt now for Scottie. I think he's trying to get his name out there, get people to talk about him, as many are because of his comments. but then he's trying to sell a brand. He's trying to sell that bourbon behind it. So I take it at this point as nothing more than a salty guy who unfortunately didn't get the contract he deserved, but he put himself in that position. So I don't hold
right. How do you feel bad for somebody who made that choice himself? You know what I mean? He didn't have to. He chose to. You know, so
Jerry specifically told him multiple times, do not sign this contract. And if you do, don't come knocking on my door asking for more money. And that's
Scotty
exactly
always just kind
did.
of like watching that documentary. I've watched a lot of old Bulls films. Like for my 6th birthday, I got Jordan to the Max, the big IMAX Michael Jordan DVD. And during all these like old Bulls things that I watch, Pippen just always seemed to be a very selfish player. You know what I mean? Like every decision he made was with self-interest involved. It was never really about the team. At least it didn't strike me as being about the team. You know, where you have guys like Michael who are putting in everything they can for the team to make everybody better. Yeah, was he an asshole? Absolutely. At the end of the day, did they accomplish the goal that they wanted to accomplish? Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so, but if you really look at that though, like so in that second video, he brought up about those cameras and that they were working for Michael and all that. If you really think about it, if that's the truth, you could put Michael in that same kind of selfish category. I mean, if that is really indeed true or not. That's what we don't know yet. I can't wait for this book to come out. So this is not the end of this at all. By any
real quick, how many Robin movies are there?
So
none, right? But how many Batman movies are there, right?
I wouldn't consider him Robin. I wouldn't.
And right, but most people do when you talk about Jordan and Pippen, right? Pippen was the Rodman to Michael's Batman. They're like, hey, Robin got his own show. He's on Teen Titans Go, you know, and he's got cameo appearances in all the Dark Knight Dark Knight franchise, and he got to fight Mr. Freeze. So like we've seen Robin, but I don't know. I just feel like Michael is Michael. No matter what you do, to try to tarnish that, it's just ridiculous in my opinion.
Yeah. So we talked about this on the Chicago Clubhouse last night, and my guy JB said something really smart that I kind of want to bring in. I think Michael Jordan was Superman. I think Scottie Pippen was Batman. I think the first three-peat, you have Horace. Horace is probably your Robin. And then your second repeat, you've got Rodman. You know, I think he was that good on that high of a level of a player. I mean, he was on. And
Batman was always salty at Superman.
He was, that's exactly where I'm going with this.
I get it. I could see that. That's actually a really good point.
He didn't have the powers that he would, you know, just watch Superman. He's just a dude. Right. You know, he's just a rich dude that could just, you know, that hung out with a little boy. Let's not get into that whole, you know, topic. We don't need to do that, guys. But anyway, moving on. The freaking Cubs.
Yeah. Before we jump into, we're going to bring our buddy Greg Braggs on. A lot of you guys watching know him from Braggs in the Stands. Braggs is going to be brought to you guys by the John Darren team out of Homer Glen. We'll go ahead and play the
Hi, I'm Jonathan Darren, licensed real estate broker with Coldwell Banker Real Estate Group in Homer Glen. Are you looking to buy or sell? Have you been disappointed in the past? The Jonathan Darren team with Coldwell Banker Real Estate Group focuses on providing you with a concierge level of service during the process of buying or selling. We are a service-oriented team with a fresh and professional approach to selling real estate. Our goal is to combine knowledge, skills, and passion to exceed our clients' expectations, and most of all, we truly care. We are a knowledgeable real estate team focused on offering expertise and innovative solutions for our clients. The Jonathan Darren team has 5 full-service real estate brokers and a dedicated full-time marketer servicing all of Chicagoland. We will customize a detailed plan around your timeline for a sale, purchase, investment, estate, or other needs. Real estate transactions can be stressful, but don't need to be. Let us handle it for you. Visit our website, homesbyjdt.com, or call 708-308-1938 today. Expect better in real estate. Choose the Jonathan Darren team.
And Chubb's coming in right away with the Braggs. That's your number one fan, right? Oh, you're on mute, bud. Braggsy, you're on mute.
Braggs, you're on mute.
That's right. My man Chubbs, my loyal viewer to the Brags and the Stan show. As Shane and Phil would say, maybe my only viewer, but that's okay. You're not defined by the size of the fight in your viewers, but the fight of the size of your. I don't know. That's the best I can do. But you guys are really pissing me off. You're pissing me off with this Batman slander right out the gate. Because I will not tolerate coming on here and listening to Batman over Superman over Batman slander. Superman is a big baby. All his movies have been terrible. And he's got superpowers up the ass, and he still can't figure out a way to end things. No, I can go all day. Batman, you say, is just a guy. Batman is not just a guy. He's a badass. He's a rich dude. He goes in with no superpowers and holds his own. So I'm not going to tolerate no Batman slander. And Batman versus Superman was terrible. Ben Affleck ruined Batman for a lot of people. We need to get back to Batman's roots and get things right. The new Batman that's coming out, the guy that played the
Robert
Twilight,
Pattinson.
Robert Pattinson.
And they're doing a lot of the filming that in Chicago right now. I think that will get Batman back on the right track.
I've heard people call that the emo Batman already.
I mean, personally, Michael Keaton, I thought he was pretty good.
Michael Keaton's number one. Keaton, it's Keaton, then Christian Bale.
Yeah, Christian Bale. That's
and then
for sure.
way at the very bottom underneath, Adam West and George Clooney and Val Kilmer is stupid Ben Affleck.
Yeah, Ben Affleck.
Okay,
but all right, so we're
with the Batman stuff.
We're talking superhero movies. What movie would the Chicago Cubs team be right now?
The Titanic.
The Titanic is right. Absolutely.
I mean, that's an easy one right now. I mean, they started out at this magnificent ship that won us a World Series and obviously raised expectations in a way that Cub fans are not used to. Right. And so we have an affinity for these players. Certainly I do. And it's hard to let go. But at some point, as my guy Danny Rocket said on Twitter the other day from the Sun Ranto show, he does a great job covering the Cubs. He said the worst thing the Cubs can do is nothing. And I agree with that because 3 weeks ago, I'm all in, ready to add to this team. Let's make a playoff run. They certainly could win the division, and they technically still could. But then you're running into the territory of they're going to do nothing because you're certainly not going to re-sign these guys to long-term deals because, A, you can't afford all three of them. Right. And B, they may not want to re-sign here. Some of them might feel slighted, whatever, and then obviously Chris Bryant's going to be asking for big money. So then you've got that problem. So if you stick with them to the end of the year, then you may risk not getting anything for them in return. So now that they've kind of showed this side of them with this collapse here in the last few weeks, the smartest move probably is to start trading away so you can start acquiring prospects. And the problem with that is we have to trust Jed Hoyer to get the right prospects in place. The return for Yu Darvish was not good enough. Now we're going down that road with maybe getting rid of Craig Kimbrell, maybe Javi Baez, maybe Chris Bryant. And they have to hold strong and get good prospects for these guys. So it's a little bit of a balancing act, a juggling act almost, because these teams know that we're going to get desperate to start getting rid of them. So the asking price is going to be low. I mean, we saw this when we got rid of Eloy Jimenez, and you get Jose Quintana and Dylan Cease to the White Sox. And now look at how that trade has turned out. Jose was okay, but again, not good enough return in my opinion. Right. But beggars can't be choosers. When you're a seller, the other team knows you're a seller. So they're in a bit of a quandary here when it comes to that. But like I said, the smartest move is probably to start trading away for assets. But I won't be surprised when Javi and Chris Bryant and Rizzo and all these other guys are gone and lighting it up for the other team like we're seeing with Kyle Schwarber hitting 16 home runs in 18 games. It's like it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation for the Cubs. Thank God they got a World Series out of it.
Right, and going back to that, like the World Series, they almost choked that away too. You know what I mean? And ever since then, it's been just underperformance after underperformance. Now you're in 2021, and if you really think about it, this is the Cubs team we were supposed to expect this year, right? This Cubs team that's non-competitive, that's getting blown out by the Brewers, that's pitching staff is just terrible. Now, going forward, like we talked about, we want to start trading out some of these pieces. But where are we going to start looking for talent, right? Because, Alan, I'm going to come to you first. Let's say a team like the White Sox, right? They need bullpen help, right?
Yeah.
The Cubs bullpen has been solid for the most part. A couple games where they let up the big runs in the 8th inning. But other than that, Craig Kimbrell's been on fire. So what do you think they should look to do, Alan?
See, I'm kind of concerned with something that Bragg's kind of said that I was going to allude to is what can you get for Chris Bryant and Javi Baez as a rental? Are you certain that there's going to be teams that are really going to buy into that and actually give up anything? The guys for me it's definitely, it has to be that bullpen. You've got to get as much out of that bullpen as you can going forward because I don't know if you're going to be able to get anything for Chris Bryant. I don't know if anyone's going to rent him for a few months, not knowing if he will sign long-term outside of maybe the Yankees.
I mean,
it's just hard for me to sit and fathom about anybody really trying to buy in for Javi Baez, who has an on-base percentage of I think it's 265 right now.
Javi is the most expendable piece right now to me.
Yeah,
at least personally, because he's just so undisciplined at the plate.
He is.
Well, yeah, you'll get the Javi with the flashy plays in the field and 2 home run games and this and that, but then you got a guy who strikes out 5 times in a game.
Yeah.
Well, and also you have the shortstop in the making in the minor leagues from the Jackie Robinson West squad from back in the day, and his name's eluding me right now. Howard.
I know who you're talking about.
Howard, right?
Howard. Yeah, his last name is Howard. Yeah, I don't remember his
Howard.
name.
I'm skipping on his first name, but yeah, they've got him sitting there at shortstop. Of the 3, when you talk about the big 3 and who they should re-sign, to me, it's no question Chris Bryant. The problem is Chris Bryant's going to cost a king's ransom. So how do you juggle this? And to me, their teams aren't giving up prospects like they used to for a rental. This isn't the days of when Houston acquired Randy Johnson and for a half a year to try to win a World Series. It's but the Cubs have to try. You can't just say, well, it is what it is, because like Danny Rocket said, then they're going to end up with nothing. And you don't want to be left with, left with nothing in your hands here in the offseason. So it's piss or get off the pot time. It's not fun. If the Cubs had been forward thinking, they probably could have got rid of these guys last year before COVID when there was no fans in the stands, and it would have been much easier to get over this. And now, we've had this teaser first half of a season. They got so hot, and it was so much fun being at Wrigley while they were hot here in the last, in May and early June. And this collapse, it's just kind of, taking a whirlwind. Now all of a sudden they're 6 games back, but they have no choice. They have to do what's best for the organization going forward. And if you can't re-sign these guys, you got to get what you can get for them. So you got to start trying to get people playing poker against each other. The White Sox, as you mentioned, they're a desperate team to try to win a World Series. I mean, if you look at how they started their season with the intro video talking about winning, that's pretty prominent to stand out there and. I mean, they only were in the first round last year. It's not like they're guaranteed to win a World Series, but that's where their mind is. And you can tell they have that world championship focus with the way they haven't really been deterred with the injuries they've had. So I would be dangling a Chris Bryant and some bullpen pieces at them and seeing what we can get for them. And no, you don't blink at the first offer.
No,
don't have Ryan Pace at the negotiating table.
Right.
You want to make sure you try to get as much as you can. We already gave them Eloy and Dylan, so they owe us one.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think they'll see it that way, Brad.
I mean,
I don't care.
Damn it, do it. No, but so hang on.
Go ahead, Alan.
It's like Dwight. It's like Dwight from The Office. Sign it.
Yeah,
do it
now. No, but so the other part of this coin that really intrigues me is the free agency market this next season. You've got guys like Trevor Story. You've You've got guys like Freddie Freeman. You know, I even think Dexter Fowler is going to be available. You've got guys like Brandon Crawford, AJ Pollock. I could keep going. Like, there's a massive free agency list this year. So what if you get addition by subtraction to where you can spend that money on some other type players to bring in here and keep a guy like Wilson Contreras around, you know, or maybe sign Rizzo if he takes a team-friendly deal, which I doubt he will because he's already taken one. You know, like that's kind of.
I mean,
where
a guy with
I'm
a
at
bad
right
back,
now.
though, really can't be too stingy at the negotiating table when every year he misses time because his back's acting up. You know what I mean? And you can't pay the guy superstar money.
No.
At the age that he's at, and I love Rizzo, man. And like Bragg said, like this team did something that no other Cubs team for any of us ever did. Won the World Series. And
95-year-old old men.
Right.
That,
you know,
that meathead in all of us, because we all have it. We all have that little meatheadedness, you know, like we don't want to get rid of these guys because we have that heartfelt feeling for them. Well, it's time. Jake Arrieta, I don't even think we should have signed him. I mean, he was horrible today. He had like 1.2 innings today. He gave up like 6 runs.
But that's to the point of why you don't sell. I mean, if they still had Yu Darvish and Kyle Schwarber on this team, you know, maybe it would still be much of the same. But at the same time, Yu Darvish has the most 1 run or less games, and Kyle Schwarber's hit 16 homers in the last 18 games. And Kyle Schwarber was a guy that I have a guy on my Twitter, this Micah guy who's always tweeting at me these "I told you so" tweets, and he was telling me, you know, the problem with Cub fans is we fawn over mediocre players, and he was referring to Kyle Schwarber. Well, now Kyle Schwarber's almost tied Sammy Sosa for the most homers in a month, and he's not taking roids. So, like I said, I guarantee these guys we're going to get rid of that we don't want to pay are going to light it up for the Yankees and the Dodgers and everybody else. The problem is it's just not working here is the end of the day answer. So it is a rock and a hard place that the Cubs have found themselves in.
So that's a good point, Braggs. Like, and it kind of is that way with a bunch of Chicago sports teams, right? Like the Bears the same way. Anytime somebody shows a little flash, they don't re-sign him, he goes somewhere else. And he does, and that player usually is a little more productive than with the Bears.
Mike Davis.
Right. Yeah. Now, isn't that more of an organizational problem? Like you see teams like the Dodgers, right? They did what the Cubs wanted, what the Cubs should have been. You know, consistent competing for playoffs and World Series and still being able to replenish the team.
It's organizational, but I also think there isn't, because this is something that's been going on our whole lives with all Chicago sports teams. You see this trend happen, and a lot of it is because it's a major market. The pressure to play in Chicago is different than playing for the Washington Nationals. Yep. And when you're playing at Wrigley Field for the Chicago Cubs, it just – and that may sound like they're not soft mindset-wise. It's just the day in and day out pressure of playing here is just a different level. And sometimes you see guys enhance their game elsewhere because they're just not – the spotlight's not as bright, and they can relax and start to just play their brand of whatever sport they play. And I do think that's a big element of it beyond the organizational or coaching, you know, issues.
So are we as the fan base a toxic fan base then? You know what I mean? Because I get it. We want to win. Every fan base wants to win. But at times I do feel like as a Chicago sports fan, we're a little unrealistic in some of the ways that we go about our expectations for our teams, right?
Especially when a team gets good.
Right.
The expectation levels raise, and then we're not reasonable with how it truly is to unfold. You know, I appreciate the journey when it comes to sports. Some fans have no patience for the journey. And, you know, that is a big element of it. And then the other element is, you know, it's fans diving in on a guy, you know, trying to make them the, you know, scapegoat or public enemy number one. And you see guys turn their – look at Derrick Rose. I mean, to me, I laugh at this newfound love that all these Chicagoans have for Derrick Rose when I watched them drag his name through the mud for years while he had 3 debilitating knee injuries. And this is a kid born and bred on the south side of Chicago, heart and soul of this city. Yeah. And they dragged his name through the mud, calling him Mr. Glass and all this other bullshit. And now he's playing well. And we want to try to act like we always were in his corner. I know I was, but I'm a different breed when it comes to Chicago sports fans. I'm a little more loyal than most. I get made fun of for sticking by Mitch frickin' Trubisky. You know what?
I didn't say it, you did.
Wears frickin' uniform, and I'm gonna root for the guy. You're already seeing the elements of fans getting nasty towards Andy Dalton. Yes, Chubbs. Jay Cutler.
I loved Jay Cutler, and I will stand by that. Cutler was by far my favorite.
I loved Jay
Bears
Cutler at first until, after the whole bike incident, whenever he against the Packers in the championship game. I was a huge Cutler fan. I got drugged through the mud for being a Cutler fan forever.
Yeah. I would get in fights with guys at the bar over Jay Cutler.
Chris right here is one of them.
I got in a huge fight with one of my friends in our front yard for having a projector party the night he was getting rocked by the Giants on Sunday Night Football.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
But then 2 or 3 years later, when the Trestman era hit, that's when I didn't give up on the NFC Championship game. I can't stand when fans turn on a player when they get injured. That's dog crap to me.
Way to go, Alan.
Mark Trestman's second year was when I had enough. He let go of the rope. That team maybe didn't have enough talent on defense, but just watching them from training camp on, Martellus Bennett got suspended for fighting Kyle Fuller, Brandon Marshall acting like a complete lunatic that entire year, and Jay was the guy that ambassadored him to come here. And then it's like bringing your dog into your friend's house, and then your dog starts ripping up all the couches, and you're just like, what do you want me to do? I wash my hands of this. Not my dog. That's not how this works. You're the leader of this team, and I didn't like how he contorted himself or carried himself in that season, getting whooped by the Packers and the Patriots in back-to-back weeks, and we're getting laughed at on national TV, and this guy's walking around with a don't care attitude because he's on his third contract, or whatever it was, the 7-year deal that he got that he didn't deserve. So, I was on both sides of the boat with Jay, and he was just too much for me attitude-wise. That's why I did appreciate Mitch a little more, because he took the job seriously, albeit lack of talent as far as if you compare him to what Jay Cutler was. But that's the problem, is we turn all these guys – and the spotlight is just so bright, it's a lot to handle. And some guys like Michael Jordan can handle it, and other guys like Scottie Pippen, sometimes they can't. And you see the difference, and it's a mentality thing. And that's when you have a championship caliber team or a leader, you know it. Because in this city, you got to have that blood. It's like an iron. I used to iron work. I'm a bricklayer now because I was too soft to get up on that iron every day, hundreds of feet in the air, walking that iron. You got to have a certain type of blood to walk that iron. And to play in this city, to be a leader on a team in this city, you got to have the right type of blood. And the hope is a guy like Justin Fields.
That was what I was just going to ask.
Justin Fields blood, baby, ice blood.
Do you think that Fields is somebody who can be that guy?
Yeah,
he's saying everything right now. But the Bears, I don't think we talked about Justin Fields much last time you were on with us, but the Bears came out, Dalton's the starter, week 1, blah, blah, blah. We talked last week, me and Mike, about the whole aspect of, well, what if Fields is better than Dalton going into week 1? Is that going to cause a divide in the locker room, do you think?
I mean, it absolutely could. The problem with that is Matt Nagy doesn't really play his guys that hard in training camp or preseason. So we may not find out in the same way that we saw it with Russell Wilson with our own eyes. You could see it. They had 4 preseason games back then, and he lit it up in every single one. So it was clear cut and obvious. Now, if Justin Fields gets a good amount of playing time in these preseason games, 2 of them are home games, one of which is against the Bills, where he very well could go head-to-head versus Mitch Trubisky. Unfortunately, I'm going to be in Las Vegas for that game. But if he lights the world on fire in front of the Soldier Field crowd against Mitch Trubisky, it is going to take the needle and move it to even a higher pace than what it is right now for the fan base and the team. Because the guys on the team want Justin Fields to play as soon as possible. They want to win a division. Aaron Rodgers doesn't return to the Packers. Every team in the division is going to be licking their chops saying it's our turn. But, I know Chubbs has been, beating the drum that they should play him. And I know there's a lot of fans saying the same thing. I'm of the personal opinion that I think we need to see it first before we make any grand proclamations. even if that proclamation seems obvious, I still have to see it for myself to stand on that rock and scream to the mountaintops. Now, do I think he's capable? 100%. Do I think he has the blood type to be a leader in this city? 100%. You see the clips of him as a leader with Ohio State. You see the pedigree from where he came from in high school to college, the games he's played in. He absolutely can. But things can change fast. Derrick Rose had that blood type, right? And then he got hurt, and obviously the injuries had a big part of that. But it took a big hit to his mentals as well. And you could almost see it. Now he's kind of found himself later in his career, but things can change fast in the city if you're not succeeding. And it's like quicksand when you're not. So it's all going to be based on his success and how the team responds to him. But I think it's absolutely a really good possibility. The fear for me is, we go to training camp and people are going to be booing Andy Dalton walking out the tunnel. Like, Lee, This is what I talk about with pariah stuff. No bad vibes. Let's have good vibes with this team. And, Andy Dalton's their teammate. So we start booing their teammate as they run out the tunnel. Some of these players are going to be like, yeah, this is the same old Bears fans who, are cussing us out coming out the tunnel every year. And I know they have to play over that. They get paid big bucks to play beyond that stuff. But, are we fans of this team or are we all media critics of this team? I'm a fan. Everybody else can play pretend media expert critics on Twitter. I'm a fan, and I will always be a fan. I might be a fan with opinions, but there is a line. And you're supposed to root for the home team.
Now, my only thought process with the whole Justin Fields versus Andy Dalton thing is, like, we had the question, Mitch or Nagy, who was the problem, right? Now Nagy has his guy, Justin Fields. There is no future with Andy Dalton for this team. The future is Justin Fields. My thought is give the kid every opportunity as fast as you can to get out there, get the reps, find out if, A, he's the guy, and if Matt is the coach that we need for this team. Because we still have question marks surrounding him and his play calling, right?
I agree.
And now he has his quarterback, the guy that he handpicked. And if it doesn't work with Justin Fields, then it's really time to look at Matt and say, okay, hey, you got to go.
Well, how fast can he install the offense with these guys? They're obviously splitting reps, and it takes time. You have a new left tackle who's a rookie. There's more than just the quarterback and head coach with moving parts. And so it is complicated. It's not so easy, it's just not as easy to just throw it all out there and hope it works out. It could look at Tua Tagovailoa from, as I butcher his name. He comes in, then they take him out, then they put him back in, then they take him out, and it's a little bit of a hectic situation because maybe he wasn't 100% ready. There's no 100% one way of doing this. The end game, all that matters is that the end game is he's a franchise quarterback and a great one at that. So however they skin that cat, that's how it's got to be done. Now, that's their job to make these correct decisions. And luckily they have an extra game in the regular season, and an extra team makes the playoffs in each conference. So you get a little more time than a normal 16-game season with only 6 teams making the playoffs. They could potentially bring him in a couple games into the season, which it looks like that's what it's going to be, as frustrated as we will all be. Sunday Night Football. I mean, a couple of years, we went through this with Mitch and Mike Glennon. I was literally probably the only person that wasn't starting right away. And it was, looking back on it, I thought Mitch was a Ferrari, as I called him, because he looked really good at camp.
Maserati.
The thing that was clouding my view was how bad Mike Glennon was. If you went to those that year, he was terrible with a capital T. Now, if Andy Dalton walks out there week 1, Sunday Night Football against the Rams, a very hyped game, and he starts throwing interceptions, and we're embarrassing ourselves, every single person, players and fans included, will be like, get the kid in there. So it's going to happen one way or another, it's going down. It's just a matter of when. If it were me,
That's what I was just going to ask.
Justin Fields, the whole kit and caboodle, and just starting him week 1 and seeing where it goes. The risk is that Tevin Jenkins isn't 100% ready for that left tackle spot, and you got a rookie quarterback running for his life. And then he can't really process the speed of the game and learn it fast enough, and now all of a sudden his head's spinning, and that just causes all sorts of problems. So you're risking putting the cart before the horse, but at the same time, most players and coaches would say you only learn by getting out there and playing. And we've had examples of guys waiting, and it worked out for them. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. All that matters is that it works out in the end. So I'll keep my mouth shut and see how it plays out. But it won't be long, I'll tell you that, because I have to see it for myself. Then I'll start barking like Chubbs is in the chat.
So real quick, this guy, Big Mike, right? I know him. I live in Wisconsin, so I got to deal with Packer fans all the time. This guy tells me the other day that without Aaron Rodgers, the Packers are still better than the Bears.
It's crazy. He's out of his mind.
He is out of his mind. He is out of his mind. Now, Braggs, I'm going to ask you this. With Aaron, let's just assume Rodgers isn't going to play this year, right? Because they got that opt-out clause, and I'm pretty sure he's going to end up sitting. At least in my opinion, I think he's going to sit. If Rodgers doesn't play, where do you see the Bears ending up in this division?
Well, I mean, I guess it's hard to say because we don't know when Justin's coming in, but just by default, let's just say it was Andy Dalton the whole season or Justin Fields the whole season, that's an upgrade from what we were dealing with Nick Foles and Mitch Trubisky. Yes. They get Eddie Goldman returning to this team.
Right.
Their cornerback depth isn't as deep, so that's a big concern. Seeing how these new guys fit without Kyle Fuller as a leader who was really knocking people's heads off last year. That's probably my biggest concern on defense. Akeem Hicks looks like he's healthy and shape, so I like that. But where would I see? I mean, to me, the Bears are the best team in this division if Aaron Rodgers isn't on the Packers. The likelihood that the Packers all band together when Aaron Rodgers says, I'm not playing for you guys anymore is less likely than the team literally mutiny against their GM for running the best player in football out of town. That's more likely than them all banding together, us against the world, and winning the division without Aaron Rodgers. You're going to start falling into Chicago Bears world if you don't have Aaron Rodgers and the stuff we've been dealing with 2 decades. But, the Green Bay Packers have had a lot of luck for 2 decades, so I don't blame a Green Bay Packer fan for diluting himself into believing that everything's going to be okay no matter what, because that's all they know for 25 years. So, a lot of this is, even for a guy like me as a Bears fan, A, with Rodgers leaving, and B, with them being a terrible franchise for a few years, is I'll believe it when I see it, because you almost don't want to jinx it.
Right.
It's never happened.
What were you going to say, Tarbill?
Oh, so Greg, do you think that Matt Nagy's contract at all has anything to do with when Justin Fields will see the field? Because there is part of me that thinks that if he sits for, let's say 6 or 7 games and then goes in, Matt Nagy could use that as leverage to renew his contract and be here at least another year with his guy.
Yeah, certainly, I think more so ruining his developmental curve is the bigger fear. I think no matter what, him and Ryan Pace have bought themselves into next year. But, Matt Nagy, Justin Fields is coming out there at some point no matter what. And Matt Nagy is going to have to show he can run a consistent offense, a balanced offense, and not run questionable plays on 3rd and 1 to the short side of the field. There's a lot on the table for Matt Nagy to prove now that he has less excuses of why they're bad. But this year is certainly a developmental year for the left tackle, certainly a developmental year for the quarterback. So he has those built-in excuses no matter what week Justin Fields starts. So, he's got until next year. But if the offense is still sputtering, still showing this erratic inconsistencies, then next year will be money on the table time for definitely Matt Nagy. Maybe Ryan Pace has an extra year after that because he pulled the pulled the rabbit out of his hat by getting Justin Fields and righting the wrong of not drafting Deshaun Watson. I'm not going to blame him for not drafting Patrick Mahomes, but he certainly gets a lot of blame for not drafting Deshaun Watson. It's obvious anybody on Bears Twitter would have drafted Deshaun Watson too. So he saved himself and literally righted that wrong by getting Justin Fields in the way that he did, being patient and waiting till he fell to 11 instead of getting jumpy at 8 or 9 and giving up too much equity. He's bought himself a little bit of time. So, but I think Matt Nagy's chomping at the bit. He's an egomaniac. So if Justin starts showing that he's ready, it's going to take every fiber of Matt Nagy's being to not change his course and put him out there right away. Because you think Matt Nagy wants to go out there week 1 on Sunday Night Football and lose? Hell no. He wants to go back to being the genius everybody thought he was as he won Coach of the Year in 2018. He's not trying to go out there and embarrass himself week 1, but it all depends on Justin Fields. And I think they're doing the right thing by not saying anything other than what they should be saying right now. Right. But none of the words matter. Let Justin Fields dictate it on the field. That's been my battle cry for months now. Let him show it on training camp, show it in the preseason, and it shouldn't be too long. He's got the intelligence. You see the IQ tests are off the charts. He's got the pedigree. He comes from the big-time school. So I agree with Chubbs at the end of the day. It sounds like sometimes we're arguing against each other with this, but I'm with him in this. So I want Justin Fields out there as fast as humanly possible too, but I also can respect the fact that there's more moving parts to consider, and they have to do this right. They cannot ruin it. Maybe it's impossible to ruin. Maybe he's so good that it's impossible to ruin. Wouldn't that be nice?
That would be great.
That's that hope we keep holding on to, Brax. It is. Everything's predicated on that. Everything.
Now, Braggs, before we let you go, man, I know you had a pretty cool event over the weekend. Yeah. If you want to tell everybody a little bit about that, and then let everybody know where they can kind of find you. We'll talk, a little bit more, but go ahead and tell us about that event.
I was able to do my first ever live event at Catch Table and Tap in Maryville, Indiana, in my hometown in the region. And Collector's Cave is an autograph memorabilia company, and they're located from the region. And I've kind of gotten in with them here. I'm doing some work with them, and they asked me to start doing live shows at their events, and it's really cool, exciting experience. They had Jim McMahon there for the first ever live event, and it was hopping. There was over 200 Bears fans there, and we did our show on the outdoor patio. Unfortunately, we had serious Wi-Fi issues, and then beyond that, we had tornadoes coming through with thunderstorm and lightning, and that I would not be deterred that day, guys. I would be goddamned if I was gonna let my first ever live show be ruined by this. So we literally stayed out there in the pouring rain. Shout out to my guy Alex Acevedo from the Tape Never Lies Network. He was the tech guy pulling all the strings to make all this happen, and it was an adrenaline rush just to be there. You guys have done some live stuff, I'm sure, with Fat Mike, so you guys know what it's like to be in front of a live audience like that. It was so much fun. And we're going to be doing more of these here in the future. July 24th on Saturday, July 24th, they're having 2 live events, 2 public signings. Dan Hampton in New Buffalo. I just posted something about it on Twitter. And then also Scott Podsednik at the Buffalo Wings and Rings in Chicago on Halstead. You can meet him there. I won't be at the Scotty Pods thing. Obviously, I'm a Cub fan, so no reason for me to be there harassing Sox fans about their stupid L flags. But I'll be at the Dan Hampton signing, doing a live show. That's all the way out in New Buffalo. But you can order your tickets at www.collectorcave.com, and they have a Facebook group, and they're on Twitter. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact us, and Aaron and Mike run the show over there. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun, a great adrenaline rush. And I'm looking forward. They got so many signings coming up in the future they haven't yet announced. And I'm going to be doing a lot of live shows here coming up in the future. So excited to do those things. And, it's just been fun watching Braggs in the stands. This has been almost a year now starting this, and it's just been a lot of fun to see where it goes. Getting a lot of great support from you guys and everybody else across the board on social media means a lot to me. Going out on my own was a scary thing. I was at Bears Barroom for a few years and wasn't sure if I could do it. but I've had a lot of support from the right people, and that's what it takes. It's impossible to do it on your own completely and it be completely successful, and it takes a village, and I've certainly had a great village behind me. So shout out to all those people that have helped me along the way. So yeah, if you want, you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube. Just search Braggs in the Stands. If you want to follow my personal account on Twitter, which I'm on way too much, it's at gbraggsjr23. And, that's it, man. I always enjoy coming out with you guys and shooting the shit. I could go for hours. It's a lot of fun. It saddens me. You guys were showing the Scottie Pippen stuff. Those are guys I looked up to. And, I might have to go back to The Last Dance just to cheer myself up with this stuff because it's just ridiculous, to hear him, go this route all these years later. Just let the legacy be what it is.
Yep.
But, this is the PR move that you got to do when you're selling books and selling booze. So, it is what it is. But I looked up to Jordan and Scotty and Dennis and all those guys. So, I could go all day long talking Chicago sports. It's a lot of fun, licking our wounds with the Cubs. But we've got greener pastures here coming up with the Chicago Bears in training camp right around the corner. So maybe I'll see you guys at camp. Obviously, it seems like there will be a small amount of fans allowed there. But Family Fest will be at Soldier Field, and I will be front and center. You know that. And then the first preseason game, I'll be there as well. So if you're there, let me know, and we'll hang out in the stands as Braggs always is doing.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to get my kids out to the first preseason game. So they've never seen a Bears game. So I figured let's see if they can handle preseason before I decide to take them to.
Well, it's going to be a lit atmosphere as Justin Fields runs out that tunnel.
Yes.
The Family Fest is a good event to go to. It's cheaper than a preseason game, and they do fireworks to end the night.
Oh, nice.
So that's a little more for kids. I would suggest taking your kids to that one and then taking your boys to the week 1 preseason, so then you can lock into the gameplay. Just a suggestion.
I'm trying to get some tickets to go to Vegas to see the Bears play in Vegas against the.
Good
the
luck
Raiders.
to you on that one. I know it's a hot ticket.
Yeah, it's a hot commodity. Otherwise, I'm thinking Tampa. Take a week off, maybe go down to Florida, see the Bears play, something like that. So that's my goal. But Braggs, I want to thank you for coming on with me. It's always a pleasure. Big time fan of yours. Keep doing what you're doing, and rock and roll, man.
Appreciate you guys. I always enjoy your coverage on Twitter and Facebook and everywhere else. And this is my first ever live doing anything here in my new studio here in my new house. So you guys kind of this was the christening here, and I lost my headphones at catch. Getting drunk after our live show in the tornado. So got to get new headsets, but everything went up without a hitch. So shout out to you guys. Appreciate you guys bringing me on. I'm happy to come on anytime you need me.
Thanks, Braggs. Have a good night,
Thanks,
man.
Greg. Take care.
Take care, guys.
All right, that was Greg Braggs Jr. Braggs in the Stands. Dude's doing some great stuff, man, through his show, his Twitter. It's awesome. If you guys don't follow him, make sure you head over to Twitter at Braggs in the Stands. Dude loves Chicago sports, as you can tell. We probably could have talked for another 3 hours about everything we just talked about. We could just go back in a circle and talk about it again. Now we do have another guest. Corie Welsh is going to be on. She's with Bears or Bear Down Report. Before we get to Corie, let's run the White Oak promo so that we can get that out of the way and then jump in with her.
Honey, will you marry me?
Yes, yes, yes!
Let's get out of here.
Come to Indiana's premier venue. Come to the farm. Come see all the wildlife. Come to White Oak Farm Venue in Michigan City, Indiana.
Come to our 80-acre sanctuary right off I-94 in Michigan City, Indiana.
Come see all we have to offer, from 2 brand new Amish-built barns with climate control.
Come see the ponds with beautiful waterfall, meadows and wildflowers, and so much more.
Come see our secluded venue. After you enter our private road, you'll be in your own world away from it all, with outdoor ceremony spaces, wood-fired pizza ovens, and lots of fresh air.
Come enjoy Northwest Indiana's premier wedding venue, where you gather with your family and friends. Stretch your legs and enjoy the most memorable day of your life.
Visit White Oak Farm Venue at whiteoakfarmvenue.com or on Facebook/Instagram.
All right, guys, again, that was a quick word from White Oak Farm Venue. If you're looking to get married in the area, be sure to reach out to them. Beautiful venue. That's where our guy Fat Mike's going to be getting married here in September. So check them out if you're looking to get married, guys.
Yeah, like I always joke with Mike, we're the one-stop shop podcast for all things marital issues. You know, we have White Oaks where you can get married. We have Mark Berardi where you can get divorced because he's the lawyer for us. John Darren where we can get a house, and Nick and Ivy where you can go and drink your sorrows or your joy from getting married. But I was on a show a week and a half ago, the Irish Bar Show. And on that show, I met some really cool people. It was awesome to be able to do somebody else's show for a change. I met Corie, and I thought, hey, you know, why not branch out, try to get some more fresh faces on the show? So I'm going to bring on Corie Welsh. Corie, how are you tonight?
Hey, guys. I'm good. And me.
All right.
Corie, this is Alan and Andrew Tarbill. These are the guys from 1252. Fat Mike, a couple other guys too, but we want to thank you for coming on. I talked to you a little bit on Twitter about what we were going to talk about tonight, and let's get into it. We were talking about the first topic is going to be about Justin Fields and his reporting early to training camp. Alan Tarbill, I'm sure you guys have read about that too. I'd like to go around. We'll start with Corie. What are your thoughts? Do you think that that's something that's really going to propel him during this offseason to possibly challenge for that starting spot?
Yeah, like
well, I think we're having a little bit of difficulty with your sound, Corie. I'm going to drop you out real quick and then bring you right back. So, yeah, we're going to talk about Justin Fields and reporting early. I'm going to bring Corie right back. All right, let's try it again.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Yes. Much
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of hope it's similar to after his loss to Clemson, where he took the off season, completely regrouped, got better, and even led the charge to have a season in 2020, and then came and led put the smackdown on Clemson basically. And I think him having those weeks where before the draft where he just had to listen to everybody question his work ethic, undeservedly so, other than rumors and sources, talking about a bad work ethic. And I think that he's the kind of player that says, okay, you're going to talk about my work ethic. Well, now I'm going to come back and I'm going to show everybody that I'm going to work 10 times harder than anybody, And I think through his college career and especially going into this season, whatever Nagy says, he's made it clear that he's in to win the competition. He's on board with the plan, but he wants to win that competition, just like a bunch of people want to see him walk out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Alan, what do you think?
I think it will help him. I don't necessarily think that, him coming early really predicates him being on the field sooner. I think that it will give him a more comfortable feel for the offense, understanding how things work. Because from what Matt Nagy says, this does take up to 3 years to learn this offense the correct way. So I think this might help him a little going forward. But Andy Dalton is going to be the one who really predicates him being on the field or not, in my opinion. I mean, he can say he's coming in early, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's ready. But as Corie already stated, I think that him trying to prove those doubters wrong is something that he holds high on him and will take with him and push him that much more to make him that kind of player who can come out and hopefully soon in the season, hopefully take over.
Yeah, good point. Tarbo, what are your thoughts on Justin Field reporting early?
Well, I definitely like the work ethic that we're seeing out of him early. I mean, he's definitely putting in everything that he can to try to be as successful as possible. It's always good to see a guy with extra work ethic that wants to go above and beyond. With that being said, as Alan touched on, I don't think you can really say that's going to make him see the field any sooner. He's going to develop at the rate he's going to develop at, and hopefully for Bears fans, it's a quick development and things go really smooth and we have that Russell Wilson-esque scenario and we get to see him, in the early portion of the season. Unfortunately, I think Matt Nagy's just going to stick to his guns, though, and keep him on the bench for at least 4 to 5 games. So no matter what he does, no matter how good he looks, I'd be shocked if we saw Justin Fields week 1. But I do like the work ethic.
All right, so that brings me to the next topic that I wanted to talk about. When do we think Justin Fields will see the field? Now, the Kansas City plan, right, is to not start him at all, would theoretically be to not have him see the field at all this year, right? Sit behind Dalton, learn the playbook, come out 2022. That's his time to shine. Tarbell, I'm going to start with you. Do you think that that's a realistic plan, or do you think that the fans are going to get reckless and rowdy to see him sooner?
Well, absolutely. I think the fans are going to get reckless and rowdy to see him. I mean, you already see it on Twitter a little bit, just with all of these fans saying start him week 1. I've heard people say, well, him and Andy Dalton have the same amount of playoff wins, meat-headed fan type things. But realistically, I think we'll probably see him around, I'm going to say week 6. If Andy Dalton plays average, doesn't do anything to amaze us, but still does just enough to be a game manager and keep us competitive, I think they let him ride for 5 or 6 games. But with that being said, too, Andy Dalton didn't show us a lot of promise last year in Dallas. And, the Kansas City comparison almost kills me because Alex Smith was a proven winner when Patrick Mahomes came in behind him. He had 3 winning seasons under his belt with Kansas City. Andy Dalton and Justin Fields are initially the same guy. I mean, as far as their record with the Bears, they're unproven. They don't know the playbook. They don't know the schemes. So there's not that loyalty there like there was in Kansas City to let Alex play it out. We have no ties to Andy Dalton. We're only obligated to pay the guy $5 million, which is decent backup money. So if Justin Fields comes out and wins this competition week 1, I don't think he will, but if he did, we don't owe Andy Dalton anything. And it just seems to me that, all this, we've promised Andy that he's the starter. And, Mark Silverman about a week and a half ago asked Matt Nagy, so Justin Fields is the starter, or Justin Fields doesn't have a chance to win the starting job. And Matt Nagy said, yes, he's our starter day 1. Right. So the affirmation there from Nagy is a little discouraging because I think you'd like to hear that it would be an open competition depending on Justin's development, but only time will tell. We haven't seen Justin play in a game yet, and we're not going to get to see that obviously till preseason week 1. So that's when I'm going to hold a lot more feet to the fire, so to speak, in this situation.
So Corie, the same question to you. We just had Greg Braggs on, and we talked a little bit about what expectations there were for Justin Fields this season. When do you think we will see him, and do you think the Bears stick to the plan of hopefully not playing him this year?
Yeah, especially everything. Absolutely. But there's no advantage for him to flip the script right now in the middle of the absolute most dead part of the offseason either, So I think that we're going to see Dalton week 1, no matter what. Fields is going to get most of the reps or most of the snaps during preseason, but you kind of also have to take that with a grain of salt because he's going up against second and third string, right? I think Nagy isn't a complete moron. Dalton completely implodes in 2 games. Yeah, I think that we're going to see Fields stepping on the field game 3. But I think that they're going to have a decent amount of leeway with Dalton. I mean, he led the Bengals to the playoffs 4 times or whatever. He didn't win any games, but he got them there, I think we can win with Dalton. He's obviously not a franchise quarterback like Fields has the potential to be. So I think maybe week 6 is a fair bet. But again, if Dalton's winning and the offense is getting in some kind of a groove, they're not going to flip the script right in the middle of the season either. So I don't, you look at and they completely came out and lit it up the first game of the season. But then you have people like Tom Brady and Drew Brees and Patrick Mahomes that sat most of their first seasons. So you've got good examples on both sides that you can show winning quarterback. I don't know if there's a right answer here.
So, Bratch, I'm gonna come to you with that. Now, even if the Bears were playing well, we've seen it last year in Miami, right, where the Dolphins were playing pretty well with Fitzpatrick, and they still made the decision to put Tua in, right? Do you see a scenario where the Bears are producing well on the field and their record is favorable? They're in, let's say, a division race. Do they pull the plug on Andy Dalton, or do they ride him out if they're performing well?
I mean, that all kind of runs back to the circumstances of the situation. You know, is Andy Dalton actually producing on the field, or is he kind of like a Rex Grossman type where, you know, he's got a couple hot weeks and then he comes out and just kind of lays flat? That's really my question for them, because we know what the defense is. Well, actually, we don't know what the defense is, because Sean Desai is now the man on that side of the ball, and we don't know exactly what type of defense he's bringing. It's probably going to be a little bit more like Vic Fangio's defense from what I hear. It's like a cover 3 type based defense. So hopefully that side of the ball gets rejuvenated this year. They're probably going to carry this offense with them as they have in the past. But does Andy Dalton at least have us a chance, you know, to make a playoff run? In my opinion, probably not, but he's going to be a step up from what we had last year. It all comes back to that, though, with me, you know. And with that, will Justin Fields be able to handle that situation? You know, because just like Corie kind of said, you know, she said she thinks maybe week 6. That's coming in versus the Packers. So is that the right situation? There's really no right answer to this without knowing the situation of what we have in front of us. And that's what their job is. Their job is to evaluate these guys the best they can and try to figure out when they're ready, you know. And that's something that Matt Nagy's going to have one of those gut feelings, and he's going to pull Andy Dalton off to the side like he did with Mitch, kind of hug him, you know. Sorry, but we're going with the kid. When is that? None of us really know. I kind of think the same thing she does, though. I feel maybe week 5 probably would be roughly, maybe the Lions game week. I think that's week 4, or week 5 would be the Raiders, I believe. So like one of those games I can see possibly him coming in, but just like she said, there's really no way to tell when.
Yeah.
I hate saying that as my answer, but that's
I mean, it makes sense. I have a similar feeling with you guys. I think if we see Fields this year, I have a feeling it'll be after the bye week. I feel like they'd let him take the off week to practice with the team and then bring him in the following game. Now, my next question is, with this offense, we've seen certain players have, you know, flashes of good seasons. Alan, I'll start with you. Who do you look on this offense and think will take the biggest step forward next season?
I mean, it's a hard question. I did think about this today whenever you said that to me earlier. I think it could probably be Cole Kmet, because, I mean, and then again, I don't really know exactly what type of offense Matt Nagy is going to be running with Andy Dalton, or with, you know, if we see Justin Fields. But if it's anything like he's done in the past, it's a very big tight end based offense. So I can see Cole Kmet taking the biggest step out of everybody. Allen Robinson is probably going to be Allen Robinson. With the focus on him, possibly Darnell Mooney coming out having a bigger season. But if I had to pick one person on this offense, I would have to say Cole Kmet. You're on mute, Angela.
Sorry, I hear my fan going in the background, so
I can hear it too.
Right, so I muted myself so you didn't hear it. Tarbo, he said Cole Kmet. Who do you think is going to be that person to step up this year and have a big season?
Definitely the beginning of the season, I'm going to have to say David Montgomery, just because this offensive line is going to be totally revamped. Hopefully they're going to be able to open some run lanes for him. And Andy Dalton's not going to be that all-star quarterback that's going to go out and throw for 400 yards a game. You're going to need to take the pressure off of him. And what better way to do that than to run the ball with David Montgomery. You have Tariq Cohen coming back, although I'm not a huge Tariq Cohen fan. I like to call him Mr. East-West. He just runs side to side most of the time. But with that being said, I mean, we added a running back in the offseason as well. So right now the running backs are deep, and I think using the run game to Andy Dalton's advantage early will be key. So I just have to go with Montgomery. I feel like we're going to see him have some 80 to 100-yard games and really set a tone for the beginning of the season.
And Corie, how about you? Who do you see taking a nice step forward this next season?
Well, I think just like they said, either the run game or our passing game could absolutely break out this season. But I think we have to take it back and look at the line. And I think the person that probably is most primed to step up, take a leadership role, make the most improvement this year is James Daniels. He put on a crap ton of muscle before the 2020 season. From all the pictures I've seen, he's retained it or even added to it. In the 5 games he played last season, we won 4 of them. And that's not to say that was on him completely, but, you can't do a lot on offense without a line, obviously. I'm thinking of that, the Bucs game last year where we were just hammering on Brady and they panned to him on the sidelines and he was like eviscerating his offensive line, which I completely loved. And
I did too.
But just goes to show that even the GOAT can't get much done without a solid line. So I'm going to be looking at Daniels too. I think he could have a Pro Bowl season.
So Chubbs in the chat brought up the guy that I was going to talk about, Jermaine Ifedi. I know that he didn't play really well last season, but towards the end of the year, he definitely seemed to get a little more comfortable on the offensive line. I do agree with you, Corie, that this team is only going to go as far as the offensive line can take them. We've seen it last year. We've seen it the year before. When the offensive line struggles, this team struggles. And that's how it is with most teams in the NFL. But if you have a competent quarterback, you can kind of get away with some flaws on your offensive line. I do see this being a big year for the offensive line. You got Tevin Jenkins, Jermaine Ifedi, Cody Whitehair, James Daniels. That's a pretty solid core of guys that you can really hope to lean on with the running game, like Tarbill said. I think that's something that I'm a little nervous about with Matt Nagy's offense. He definitely gets away from the running game a little too quickly, in my opinion. I would like to see him utilize that running game to help propel Justin Fields to that next level. Now, switching sides to the other side of the ball, the defense. It's getting older, right? There's players we've lost. We lost what was his name?
Kyle
Fuller. Yeah, I remembered Fuller. I couldn't remember which one. Kyle Fuller. The line is getting older. Khalil Mack has had some issues with injury and being productive the last couple seasons. Corie, on the defensive side of the ball, what area worries you the most?
I think we've got a really solid front 7. So for me, it's the secondary. I think losing Fuller, and it's not like we didn't try to keep him. He apparently, we just couldn't come to terms. Jalen Johnson, Trufant, Thomas Graham Jr., if we're going to use him, I think Kendall Vilder could probably use maybe in a nickelback situation. They are going to have to step it up. I think especially the teams that we're going up against, right? The Packers, if Rodgers is back, the Rams. These teams are absolutely going to take advantage of that weakness in the secondary. So that's kind of the area that I'm a little bit nervous about.
Alan, what about you?
It's really hard to disagree with her, honestly. I have heard Kendall Vilder has shined out a little bit at camp, but is that enough to put him in that nickel role, at a normal rate? Is he ready to take that step? That's a big question. And outside of losing Fuller, that's a massive hit, and that's something that we're going to see. I mean, I like Desmond Trufant. Is he going to be able to stay healthy? I've seen him a lot get burnt. He is quick, but I've seen him get burned a little bit in the past. the only solid position I can see is Eddie Jackson back there. And Eddie, hopefully, is going to be put in the right position. Having a guy like Sean Desai now that knows him and understands what his strengths are, that could be a big help in the back of that secondary. But another guy for me is Danny Trevathan. We signed Christian Jones in the offseason. I can see halfway through the season if Danny's not panning out and he's just getting slower, I can see Christian Jones coming in there and having him paired up with a Roquan. Is that a problem for this team as well? That's probably those two. If I had to pick one, I'm going to go with her on this, and I'm going to have to say the secondary.
Turbo, what about you?
Alan kind of touched on what I was going to get into there, but Danny Trevathan for me is my biggest concern on the defensive side of the ball. We saw him get burnt way too many times last year. The age is starting to show, he's slowing up, not as aggressive as he once was. And I mean, there were times he was getting burned by 5+ yards consistently. And maybe it was the off season, obviously, we were with a unique situation last season because of COVID and the shortened off season and everything like that. But one would have to think that Danny's just starting to show some age, and whether he comes in this year completely healthy and stronger and looks like his former self, that'd be great. But he's my biggest concern, because if I'm an offensive coordinator, I'm targeting his side of the field and I'm trying to hit him in the flat every time and burn him.
Yeah, Trevathan, I think, is I forget how old he's going to be this year. 31, maybe I read.
You're right.
I think 31.
Yeah.
My biggest concern, and a lot of people don't agree with me, I think Akeem Hicks is an area to watch. The guy's had some issues staying healthy the last couple seasons. When he's out there, he's productive. He's kind of like that heartbeat of the defense. But he does sometimes let his emotions get the better of him. And on downs where you stop the play, he makes boneheaded penalties that give the team first downs. And when you're a defense that's aging, you really can't afford to have those mishaps where you're giving the other team more offensive possessions. I think it's going to be key for Khalil Mack, for Robert Quinn, for Eddie Goldman, to see how productive Akeem Hicks can be now that he's getting older. And I'm a little worried about the interior of the defensive line. Goldman didn't play last year, right? So he's going to have to deal with getting back into football shape. Akeem Hicks, as I said, has been injured. It could be a rough start to the season. I'm hoping I'm wrong. But moving forward, we talked a little bit about, was it Matt Nagy or Mitch Trubisky? And Alan, I'd like your take on that. We've talked about that a lot on a lot of the shows here. Do you think that Matt Nagy can prove to the fan base and to the team that he's a competent head coach and stick to a offense that has some semblance of effectiveness, some kind of a one play builds off of the next?
I think he can, but I think that all ties in to Justin Fields, because his strength, from what I'm always told, is quarterback development. So that's what he's selling to that front office, and that's what he's going to sell this offseason to this front office. That's, something that Andrew already kind of stated. Maybe he doesn't play Fields, and because he wants that extra time where he can go to the front office and say, well, I need more time with him. I need to develop him. As a play caller, it's really hard for me to have faith in him after running the ball 7 times in one game. I'm sorry, but it's just hard for me to do that. I would love if he would give that over, have Laser run the offense. He can chime in, like he did in the past, share it a little bit, but he needs to give some of that weight off, because there's times, and maybe that's all predicated on the quarterback he had. Maybe now that he has a quarterback that can throw the ball down the field a little more than 15 yards at a time, maybe he can actually call plays and he can develop the playbook the way he always wanted it to be. So I would say yes, but I'm very, very hesitant on saying yes, because I've seen what happens whenever the other side of that coin is there. So I'm hoping, but like I said, it's all predicated on the quarterback, and hopefully Andy Dalton can do that for him. If not, it's Justin Fields or bust for our guy Matt Nagy.
Yeah. Corie, what about you? What do you think the arrow is going to point for Matt Nagy after the season, up or down?
I don't know. It's totally 50-50.
It is.
When he was coming in, all we heard about was this fantastic spread West Coast offense that we have not seen yet. You know, obviously there's a lot of issues in terms of he can call brilliant plays, but it's the sequence and the forming of an entire offensive scheme that he has clearly struggled with. And I do agree with the sentiment of it depends a lot on the quarterback, but you look, we went to the Super Sexy Record, right? By all intents and purposes, he was a very, very average quarterback. Lovie Smith played to his strengths. They had a rock solid offensive line. They had a top 3, top 2 defense that year. So you need other parts of the game to help. But if you're smart enough, you can win games, and you can win with a very average quarterback, which I think is what Mitch Trubisky was. So, Nagy has not proven himself in any sense of the word. So I hope a little bit less, like more established run game, like he was talking about. But if he has a year to prove it, I think this is the year. I think he's probably around for a couple more years with, just talking about, it takes, 2-3 years to develop this offense and learn it and learn the playbook. I think he's bought himself 2 to 3 years, but I think he's on thin ice, definitely.
And Tarbo, what about you, man? What do you think?
I'm not sold on Matt Nagy really as a play caller. Without getting into it too much and getting too fired up, I'm not a fan of the tight end sweep on 3rd and 1. I'm not a fan of all the screenplays that he ran. And maybe that's not the same playbook that we see, especially when Justin Fields hits the field, no pun intended. I think it's obviously going to be very reliant on the quarterback play, what we see offensively, but there have been too many times that Matt Nagy needed to go left and just went right, so to speak. I mean, fundamentally, you have a guy like David Montgomery drive the ball 80 yards down the field, and then you give the ball to the tight end on 3rd and 1. What are you thinking? Give the ball to the guy that got you in that situation. Let him do what he needs to do to get a yard and extend the drive so you can punch it in the red zone. There's too many instances like that I can think of, especially over the last 2 seasons, that really make me doubt Matt Nagy as a play caller. Maybe I'll be proven wrong during this coming season, and that's fine. I would love to be. But as of now, I think a good coach coaches up to a player's strengths, and Matt Nagy definitely didn't do that with Mitch. We saw Mitch use his legs in 2018 for, I believe, close to 500 yards, and that's when the offense was most successful. And then Matt Nagy said, no, we're going to develop you into a pocket quarterback. We're going to get you to stay in the pocket, get you to develop a second and third read, which never really happened with Mitch, in my opinion. He was always a first read guy. But you've got to be able to tailor your offense around those things a little bit. And you don't have a guy throw the ball 40 times a game when he can only make a 5 to 10 yard pass. That's just the reality of the situation. So we'll see what Matt Nagy does here in the upcoming season. Hopefully he proves me wrong, but I'm not very optimistic at this point, guys.
I've listened to you and Vince talk about Nagy a lot on your guys' show, and I'm kind of on that same field with Tarbill. I think we've seen areas of success with him. Clearly, his offense works best when the run game is involved. He's just too stubborn to decide to run the ball as much as he should. I hope that it was a product of the quarterback he had. I'm not sold yet. We'll see. I think that's why I want Justin to get on the field sooner than a lot of other people. I think there's no future with Andy Dalton. The best way for us to figure out if Nagy's the coach is to put the guy that he picked with him and see how this offense goes. I understand rookie quarterback, there's going to be some struggles, right? Not everything's going to go right, but in the same breath, I'd rather struggle with him than struggle with Dalton. You know what I mean? And seeing if Nagy's play calling was because of who the quarterback was, or if he's just that inept at figuring out how to move an offense down the field. But I want to thank you, Corie, for coming on with us. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on Twitter?
Yeah, I'm at BDRCORIE, so at BDR Corie.
Excellent. Thanks, Corie, again for coming on. We'll look to get you back on 1252 here sometime soon.
Awesome. I'd love to come back. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Corie. Take care.
All right, Corie Welsh. Yeah, so we had a lot of interesting talks on the Irish Bear show that I was on. You guys are going to have those guys on Friday, which will be real cool.
Yes, absolutely.
I can't wait to listen to that. Vince and you guys, when you talk football, man, it gets me hyped up. You see me in the chat. I'm over here.
Oh, absolutely.
Heated.
Yeah,
and we've got a big show there, if you don't mind me saying that, Angelo. I mean, coming up, obviously, we've got the two gentlemen joining us from the Irish Bears show, as you alluded, and we also have Eric Lambert from Sports Mockery joining us as well. It's going to be a big show, lots of Bears talk, and I'll get a lot more heated than I did tonight when we're talking about Matt Nagy. I can promise you guys that.
I know that because I know who you're talking to.
I'm really interested.
We know how Vince feels about Matt Nagy.
Before we wrap the show up, why don't we do the Mark Berardi read real quick, and then we'll get into Eric and why I thought he'd be a good guest for you guys.
Call Mark Berardi, the best fucking lawyer in town.
That's all you got to say.
That's all you got to know. He's the best fucking lawyer in town.
So Eric had wrote an article for Sports Mockery about the Vegas odds that Roquan is Defensive Player of the Year, and it's a real interesting read. I thought that it would be awesome for you guys to talk about that. I'm excited to hear it. I think Roquan does have the ability to. That's one thing I wanted to talk about with Corie, and I forgot. Who on the defensive side of the ball do you guys see making a big leap forward? Roquan is probably the obvious, but I'd love your guys' feedback. Tarbo, why don't you go first?
I'm going to shock a little bit of the people here, and I'm going to say Quinn. I think Robert Quinn's going to have a breakout season.
I think you might be the only person to think that.
Obviously, we didn't see anything productive out of him last season.
Right.
But he's had a year to develop with this team. He's got the entire offseason. He's got a new defensive coordinator. We saw some really good things out of Robert Quinn in Dallas, and he's not that far removed from being the player that he once was in Dallas. He may have had an offseason. You could attribute it a little bit to, the rocky start with COVID and everything. You could attribute it to poor play calling by Chuck Pagano. I personally am not a big Chuck Pagano fan. I don't want to stand on that soapbox and say that that's why Robert Quinn underperformed. He absolutely underperformed. But Chuck Pagano didn't do anything to help him.
That's true.
I mean, Chuck Pagano would literally come out and say, I'm putting all the bullets in the gun. I'm taking out no stops. And he'd blitz 4 times in the fucking game.
Yeah. There were definitely times last season where you're sitting there on the couch and you're like, this would be a good time to send a blitz. This would be a good time to send.
Yes.
And he doesn't. And then they get 14 yards down the field. It's frustrating.
Going into prevent defense on 3rd down and 6 every time killed me. But no, not to stray away from that too much. I think that with a healthy Akeem Hicks, you've got Eddie Goldman and Bilal Nichols there to support as well. I think Robert Quinn's going to have a little bit of a breakout season, which is going to free up our man Khalil Mack to do the damage that he needs to do, because it's hard when you're getting double and triple teamed. It's hard to be successful, and a lot of the time last year Quinn wasn't doing what he needed to do, so therefore Mack was getting double and triple teamed regularly. I think if you see some production from Robert Quinn this year and you see him get after the passer, which is what we brought him here to do. He's an elite pass rusher in Dallas, one would say. So you're not, basically blitzing that guy almost every single play at the quarterback. You're not doing him justice, and you're not letting him play to his potential. Great example. See, I don't just say that about Matt Nagy, guys. But with that being said, I think it'll be interesting to see what Quinn does, and I'll be even more excited to see Khalil Mack win that one-on-one and sack Probably Jordan Love week 6 because looks like our boy Rodgers won't be playing.
I sure hope you're right, buddy.
Alan, what about you, man? Who do you see on this defensive side stepping up big for the Bears next season?
Well, Robert Quinn is a good choice, Andrew. It is. It's a good choice. But a lot of Robert Quinn is his health. I even heard he was going to training camp already hurt. And I'm like, what have you done this offseason? You know, like, I would say the same thing as you, honestly. I would say Robert Quinn, but it's hard for me to say Robert Quinn because I don't think the guy's going to be fucking healthy. I think he's still not healthy. I don't know what's going on with him. That's just some little rumors I hear off and on about him is that he went to this last training camp hurt already. And I'm like, how the hell are you hurt already? All you've done is worked out, and you're already this less durable, and you haven't hit anybody yet. That's a problem, guys.
That's obviously concerning.
Yeah. It's a big concern. But so for me, I mean, I think Khalil Mack's definitely taking that step up again. I think with, just like I've said a couple times already, Sean, Mr. Desai, is going to put those guys in the right position. And guys like Khalil Mack, Eddie Jackson are going to step up big time. Roquan is the obvious choice for all of us probably.
Right.
But because he's in a contract year. Of course, he's probably going to be the guy. He's trying to take more of a vocal side to it now. He's said that, you know, in some of his press conferences, saying that he wants to take that vocal step. And he has, from everything I've read. But for me, probably, I would, if I had to choose one guy and I wasn't taking obvious Mac, I would probably take Eddie Jackson, just because I think Eddie Jackson might get put in those good situations again, with having a Robert Quinn who's hopefully good enough to at least do his fucking job and show up on the field and stay on the field and make some kind of contribution so that pass rush comes quick and guys like Eddie Jackson can be in the right position so he has another 6 interception year. Like, that's my hope, is that Eddie Jackson is the guy who really takes that step. And he learns how to tackle a little better, too, because his tackling was fucking atrocious last year.
Garbage.
We've seen the best Eddie Jackson when Vic Fangio was his defensive coordinator. Exactly. That's when he got that big contract. So I like that. I like that. I like Robert Quinn also. Mine is – so I had two, and I was going to say Eddie Jackson, but you said that, so I'm going to go to my second one. Eddie Goldman. As long as he comes in –
I mean, if you show up, you're already doing better than you did last year.
That's right. But and I guess that's true. Like, he wasn't here last year, but I think that with his presence on that defensive line, him and Hicks together, I really do think that tandem allows Khalil Mack to be the monster that he can be. And in reality, like, we need to see that Khalil Mack this year, right? Yeah. We've seen too much of him. Right. We've seen too much of him hurt, too much inconsistency on getting to the quarterback. That's what we paid him to do, get to the quarterback. Guys like Aaron Donald, they get double teamed. He still gets to the quarterback. Like, you have to make it to him more. What did he sack the quarterback 5 times last year? 4 times?
8.5.
I mean, still, that's not any. I mean, you expect him to be double digit sacks from somebody like a Khalil Mack, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm hoping.
I mean, but all right, Angelo, but I don't think Aaron Donald has somebody dropping him in fucking coverage 30%.
And that's the other thing too, is the fact that for some reason
30% of the
they
time
thought that it was a smart idea to have him cover people. You pay the guy to do one thing, and that's to
rush
put his head down and get to the quarterback.
Yeah, you're right, Mike. Fumbles are huge.
Yep.
With him. Pressure is a huge thing with him.
Right. And Matt can be productive. Matt can be productive in other places, but his production has kind of dipped the last couple of years. I know he was dealing with some injuries last year, but you look for a guy like Khalil Mack to draw the double coverage, which allows a Robert Quinn to do better, which allows Akeem Hicks to get one-on-one, to get into the quarterback. I know Big Mike thinks that the Packers are going to have a better season than the Bears. If Aaron Rodgers doesn't play if Aaron Rodgers plays, I agree. He'll be pissed off and want to show the Packers again, and he'll probably win the MVP and then purposely lose in the NFC Championship game so that the Packers can't make it to the Super Bowl. But that's just because he's salty.
He could feel like Bobby Boucher's and just throws it to the other guy and he pretends like he chases him down. Yeah, definitely.
But, I'm excited about this Bears team next year, and that's what Justin Fields does, right? We talked a lot about how did the Bears trot out Andy Dalton and nobody else, and then we were all live when they picked Justin Fields, the savior of this franchise. And whether people like it or not, that's what this guy's going to be going into. That's his bar is going to be to save the franchise, to save the Chicago Bears from the utter disaster that the quarterback position has been
mediocrity.
For 30 plus years. You know what I mean? And it's sad when your best quarterback was Jay Cutler, who made it to playoffs once?
Yeah,
right?
And just to clarify, I didn't hate Jay Cutler after he got hurt. I hated Jay Cutler because of this fucking body language that he presented.
I will die for Jay Cutler anytime.
One time. You know when he smiled? I saw once. When he got fucking paid.
Yeah. You know why he didn't
that
smile?
Contract, he smiled. Only time.
You know why he didn't smile ever in Chicago was because the organization, the city of Chicago, literally sucked his love of the game out of his heart and soul.
Bro, they trotted Devin Hester out there as his number one receiver. Yep. Come on, man. Like, I love Hester. Receiving was not his thing.
And that O-line, we want to bitch about our O-line.
You want to talk about a defense getting old, an aging defense.
Yeah, that was bad.
That defense. It just never got put together for Cutler. They had a decent defense his first few years, no offense, right? Then they finally get the offense, some weapons, a little bit better offensive line, and the defense is allowing 50 burners by Packers and the Patriots.
But the thing about that is that I remember that 50-burger game, right?
It was rough.
Multiple 50-burger games.
Yes, back-to-back, I believe.
At halftime, did that great offense score any points? Because I don't remember them having any points on the board.
No, I think you're right.
No, okay, so
you're right.
We need to stop with the poor Jay Cutler shit. The guy had fucking Brandon Marshall. He had Alshon Jeffrey. He had Matt Forte.
That is true.
The Black Unicorn. You know, he had all those guys.
Martellus Bennett.
I'm smarter than everybody Bennett. Like, he had all those guys. And they weren't that impressive. They weren't. And I put some of that shit on him because I think he didn't really take that initiative with those guys as he should have. He just let his talent go on the field because at that point, you're right, he was burned out. We'd sucked the life out of that kid. That's why I'm saying in the beginning I was a huge Jay Cutler fan. But after I just watched him, completely digress in certain areas and just stop caring about everything, I lost that of love. I got rug through the coals because I was a Jay Cutler fan.
I'm still a Cutler fan. I do feel like he did not get the appreciation that he deserved in Chicago. I think the fact that his first couple of years in this league, he was the most sacked quarterback back-to-back seasons. I think that plays.
He had a Pro Bowl that year too, though. When he was for Denver.
Right, for Denver. But here's the thing. When you get hit as much as he got hit the first few years, what the hell do you want to do with the ball? You just want to throw that shit away before you get hit again, right? Yeah. That's why I think it's important for the offensive line to produce well this year for Fields, because the last thing you want to do is put a young quarterback in this situation where he feels like, oh shit, I just got to throw the ball up before I get sacked.
So then why? And this is the argument I have daily about Justin Fields, daily on my Facebook group, is why do you want to throw him in that same situation week one on the road versus the best defense in the league last year?
Right.
That is not a good scenario for him. I mean, if he's ready to play, great. But that's the first game you're going to put him in? You're gonna put him up against Aaron Donald?
Baptism under fire, man.
But yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Man. Yeah,
I have to agree with Angelo there.
Well, no, but see, Angelo was just defending Cutler, but also talking about putting Justin Fields in the same kind of fucking
I
situation.
think this offensive line is better than Cutler's offensive line.
We don't know what this offensive line is yet, Angelo. It's a brand new offensive line.
But who was on Jay Cutler's offensive line? Olin Kreutz and 4 guys nobody remembers.
Kreutz and nobody.
Matt Garza was there at the end of his career. Yeah, Jamarcus Webb, Cutler wanted to spike the ball into his head.
He was basically Charles Leno #2. Like he's the same guy, you know. And so
I was happy. Don't get me started on Leno, guys.
So you're telling me that you want to put that kid in the same situation that Jay Cutler was put in? Because that's exactly what you're saying. You were just raising up Cutler because of the bad situation, and you want to go ahead and put the new kid in the same fucking situation. Come on, bud.
I guess that's true. I guess I didn't think about that. But I mean, I'd rather see him than Andy Dalton.
Everybody would.
It's just the fact that, like I said, like what's the future?
Time, man.
What's the future with Dalton?
Hey, Andy Dalton's been in the boxing gym. You don't know
think
what
we're going to win a Super Bowl this year?
No, he's going to throw a mean right hook against Aaron Donald, and that'll be the end of it.
You think we're winning a Super Bowl this year?
No.
Then why? Why would you put him out there?
Because I want to know if Matt Nagy's the coach that we need for this kid.
So you can't wait 1 week. You got to put him in week 1.
I think if he plays week 2, then that just shows that he should have played week 1.
Week 2,
but they promised
probably not going to happen,
right?
Because week 2 is the Bengals, so they're going to try to give Andy Dalton his fucking due justice,
right? And that's why I think it'll be after the bye week.
And then you've got the Browns after that, so that's why I was saying whenever we had Corie on, I was saying week 4 is the Lions. It's probably your best bet by week 4 to put that kid in. That's my take. I'm not saying I want him to come in week 4. I'm saying that if you do, you bring him in against the fucking Lions.
Is he going to be wearing a badass dark visor like Big Dick Nick was on the sideline when?
I hope not.
Dude, I hope so. We need a quarterback. Get some flames on there, man.
You know what we need? We need a quarterback that can fucking produce on the field. I don't give a shit what he looks like. I don't want him to come out like Cam Newton and like try to be a fashion icon. I just want the kid to come out and ball and lead the team. That's what we need. And that's what it seems like he's about. Like, he doesn't seem like he's into all that shit, which is what I absolutely love about the kid.
Yeah, me
like,
too.
Like, he does kind of give that Derrick Rose-esque vibe where, you know, he's coming in. He's not Southside, obviously, but
no, he likes the Cubs, so that's much better.
Absolutely.
Much better.
Absolutely. But he comes in, he brings that hope for us. He has us thinking the right way. He says the right things. He doesn't seem egotistical. He just wants to prove his doubters wrong. And that's all I'm asking him to do is come out. But don't put that kid out there week 1. Don't do that to him because you're
what if he's ready?
What
if he's so much undeniably better?
Right. It's not out of the realm of possibility that he's the best quarterback on this team right now before even taking a preseason snap.
You're right.
Right.
But you want to put him out to the Wolves day 1?
If he's ready,
he can
why
use
not?
His legs.
Right.
If he's ready, why not?
Did the Seahawks say that with Russell Wilson?
It's the same. No, he came in, I think, week 4. Same shit. He came in around week 4. You got Watson actually came in the second half of the first game because I can't remember the name of the guy they had. He was absolutely
Matt Schwab. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I honestly can't remember his name, but he was absolutely horrible. I think it was Savage.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yep, you're right.
Yeah, Savage. But so that happened there. But you can't just expect this kid to come in against the best defense in the league on the road day 1 and push that shit out. If he does, my God.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
but what happens if he doesn't?
Well, then
we're right back to where we were with Jay Cutler.
I think
it's the same thing.
I think it's a little different. I think we as Bears fans need to realize like that this is going to be a growing process.
Patience.
I get it, but I would much rather have the patience and watch him struggle.
That's not patience. That's not patience.
The patience for greatness. I'm patient for greatness. But if he's the guy, right? But
let
if
him sit and watch and see what's going on, see what Andy Dalton does. Whenever Andy Dalton comes to the sideline, he can talk to him about what's going on. He can see other things on the sideline that he's not necessarily going to see on the field. So he can learn from Andy Dalton and the mistakes Andy Dalton's going to make, because he's going to make them.
Yes.
He can learn from that and watch and go, okay, in fucking hindsight, I know that when I go out, this is the kind of stuff that they did to him. I need to prepare for this going forward. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, learning on the job is great, and it is going to happen. He's going to have to do it. But I don't think against this defense is the right call, guys. I just don't.
So, real quick, my final thing is if he is the guy, will it really matter at the end of the day if he gets rocked in week 1? Because
if he gets rocked in week 1 and gets hurt, then what?
Well, okay, so he gets hurt. Obviously, that's worst case scenario.
So
but
why put him in that
what if he goes out there and balls out?
Yeah, what if? But what if the other happens? So is your ceiling for him in 2021 as good as your basement?
So
The answer is
personally,
no.
if that's the way we're thinking, I would rather him just sit the whole year.
That's
deal with the season you're going to have with Andy Dalton, take the draft picks, and build from there. Then Justin Fields comes in 2022 as a starter. But we could go around in circles with this argument all night. You know what I mean? And
I do it every day anyway,
and they're both valid points. I think that's what's fun about this is now it's not like, well, should Mitch or Foles start? Which one's going to be less worse?
Right.
It's going to be we have something to look forward to with Justin, where it's like, is it going to be too soon to start him, or do we let him just rip it? You know what I mean? So
right. That's all we're talking about here, guys. We have Justin Fields. He's going to play. It's just a matter of when.
Right. And there'll be a Justin Fields jersey in my house. I haven't bought a Bears jersey since Devin Hester, so I'm going to buy a Justin Fields jersy. I didn't buy a Mitch Trubisky jersey because I did not like Mitch.
I got a Mitch Please shirt that I got.
Yeah, you would.
I've got a Trubisky jersey that I'm going to set on fire.
No, keep it. Put it in a frame and remember the bad times. You're gonna need something to remember. Remember where you came from. That's what we need. We need to put a picture of Trubisky.
You need to save that for one of those nights you got to fire Tarbill, and
that's what I was just saying.
Put on the
you got a 12:52 live stream.
Like you need something that'll help keep you warm. You know, a little
Mitch
longer.
Trubisky era.
It'll probably go up and burn in like 2 seconds, but at least it'll be good for a second.
Yeah, he'll clean. You'll be able to clean the locker room with it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I'll wrap this up, man. We rambled on a little bit there at the end, but I want to thank all of our guests, all of our sponsors. Greg Braggs at Braggs in the Stands on Twitter. Corie Welsh for coming on. She is at BDR Corie. Go ahead and give those guys a follow. I thank you guys for jumping on with me. I appreciate Mike letting me take the reins on a Wednesday. And I'll probably see you guys next week with Fat Mike when the Fat Mike Chicago Sports Show returns.
Absolutely.
Have a good night, fellas.
Have a good night, guys.